Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel once again. If it's your first time here, my name's Peter, you're watching Thailand Bound, and today I will be reading out 4 viewers' stories, 4 true stories sent in to me from guys who have had experiences in Thailand. Now, before I get into the stories today, I've got a very exciting announcement to make. Well, it's exciting for me because I never thought this day would come. My book is actually released. It's on Amazon. Let me just put the cover up for you so you can see what it looks like. The book is called Thailand Bound Stories, Real Tales of Love and Losses in the Land of Smiles. There's 30 stories in this book. It's not an Audible book, unfortunately, but they're 30 great stories, and I haven't priced it excessively. It's quite cheap. It's on at $4.99 UK pounds. That's about $6 US. It's available on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. Click the link, that'll take you straight to the book. At the moment, just the Kindle version is there at time of writing this. Now, by the time I upload this upload goes live, I would hope the paperback version will also be available, because it just takes 72 hours for Amazon to approve it. But the Kindle version, although it's called a Kindle version, you don't need to have a Kindle. You can download it onto a PC or a phone, and you can read it at leisure. Okay, so this is volume 1, this book, 30 stories. We are currently working on volume 2, and we hope to have at least 3 volumes. All right, so exciting stuff there for me, and I hope you guys enjoy the book.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Let's get right into these now. There are 4 stories today. A couple of them are very, very short indeed. I'm having to kind of scrape the barrel, as it were. I'm running out of stories, as I keep saying to you. I had a guy write to me last week. Do you remember I put out a shout out? I said, if you're sitting on a story, send it in. I'll read it out on the channel. I had a guy write into me and said, don't worry if you run out. Just make up the stories. Nobody will know any difference. But I said to him, I will know. You know, I don't want to. I don't want to make up stories and just. It's just not what I do. I read out true stories. So once again, guys, if you're sitting on a story, please send it in, and it will be read out fairly quickly because I am running low. Hello, Peter. I have a story for you that took place around 3 years ago. At the time of this story, I was 22 years old 3 years ago. I was living in Vietnam teaching English. I had never really been a serious drinker when I was back in the States, my home country. But after moving to Asia, the exciting nightlife really brought it out of me. Vietnam has a red light district in Ho Chi Minh City that I would go to, but this was peanuts compared to what I was about to experience in Phuket, Bangalore to be exact. I was a newbie to Thailand, but not a complete newbie, as I did have my Vietnam experience with me, which was very similar to Thailand. I flew to Phuket alone. I needed to do a visa run before entering Vietnam again. I planned on only staying a couple of nights, but after experiencing the beach in the day, then the nightlife at night, I decided to stay longer. I had rented our motorbike for my daily activities. One night, I rode my motorbike from my hotel to Patong about 8:30 p.m, which was about a mile or so away. I had learned from my past Southeast Asian endeavours to only bring around $60 with me when I go out to party, because if I bring my entire wallet, that usually ends up with me waking up in the morning hungover and down a couple of $100, and possibly with a stranger in my bed. I didn't want that to happen, so I set off to Bangalore with around 2,000 baht in my pocket. I did my usual routine of pre-gaming with a small bottle of cheap 7-Eleven vodka on the beach to save money and get my buzz on before hitting the bars and clubs. I was completely dumbstruck by how awesome the nightlife was in Phuket. The beautiful girls walking around everywhere, the perfect party vibe. It really does have the best all-round welcoming vibe, much more so than Vietnam. Anyway, I got down to it, drinking at the bars and dancing with girls. At around midnight, I noticed I had spent all of my money. Not sure how I blew it so fast, probably buying drinks for a lady friend. But it was safe to say I was pretty drunk by now, and I had to take my motorbike home, as I did not have any money for a cab. Thinking back, I could have played this better, but I walked around the beach a bit to at least sober up to a reasonable state. Once I had enough of that, I made my horrible error. In Vietnam, drinking and driving is really not a serious offence. I've done it many times and gotten pulled over. Usually I flip the cop $40 and I'm on my way. I was under the impression that this was the case here. I could tell the police to come to my hotel and I'll give them money. Man oh man, was I wrong. Thailand started cracking down on drunk drivers as it has more deaths than any other country in the world when it comes to motorbikes. So I'm on my merry way home, feeling buzzed still, but nothing too serious at this point. As I leave Patong, everything looks clear and I'm honestly not even thinking about getting pulled over. When I make a left turn and see the police lights with many officers and also other drunk foreigners pulled over. At this moment, I'm not overly concerned as my past experience with this in Southeast Asia was never too crazy. The police officer, a young tall Thai man, flashes his flashlight into my eyes as I approach him, clearly signalling for me to pull over. He demands I turn off my bike and step off it, which I do. Then he says, I must be drunk, and pulls out his breathalyzer. I had spent a good amount of time sobering up and wasn't even 100% sure that I was going to fail the test. I blew into the bag and it said 0.7. I thought, oh good, I've passed. I can go home now. Being from the States where the legal limit is 0.8, I thought I was in the clear with my 0.7. But that wasn't the case. Apparently, the legal limit in Thailand is 0.5 or something like that. I can't exactly remember. The cops all lit up like they had just witnessed me murder someone right in front of their eyes, saying, you drunk, cannot drive in. That moment was the first moment I thought to myself, oh, this doesn't seem right. Anytime this has happened to me in the past in Vietnam, the cops didn't shit themselves with excitement and anger. I said, I'm not drunk, just buzzed. They didn't like that either. I proceeded to ask them how much money they would like and told them to follow me to my hotel where I would pay them. They said, no, and cuffed me. I was in shock. This is where oh shit started sinking in. They told me to get into this truck and wait there while they continued pulling people over. As I'm walking towards the truck, I see another unlucky American guy getting the same treatment as I did. I get into the truck and see a lot of other foreigners sitting in there already, 5 others to be exact. I started asking them, what's the deal here? Can we pay them or not? That's when a Canadian guy said, that's not going to work. Then it full on hit me. Oh shit, this is bad. The Canadian said to me, don't worry, I have a plan. They are going to officially breathalyze you again at the station. Put this penny in your mouth and it can't detect the alcohol. In my head, I'm thinking, buddy, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But apparently he really believes in this as he takes an American penny every time he drinks for this reason. Just in case it did work, I accepted one of his pennies. They took us to the police station and sat us down at a big table. Some time went by and like the Canadian said, they were going around with the breathalyzer. The Canadian was to go first and I was really interested to see if his little trick would work. He blew some ridiculous number and then that little trick was officially confirmed to be bullshit. They went around everyone, failed the second test, including me who blew a 0.6. That's when shit hit the fan and we were brought into the police station. They took all of our possessions, fingerprinted us and documented our entry into the jail. We were then placed into a cell. That was smaller than my living room back home, contained no blankets or pillows or beds of any sorts. The cell contained about 11 people, 6 Thais with tattoos and us 5 white guys. One hole in the ground for everyone to use as a toilet. The women's cells were opposite the men's but left of us and just out of sight. This building must have had many of these cells as the hall was very noisy. I tried asking them as they placed us into the cell what I could do to get out. What did they want? They didn't say anything to me, just uncuffed me and placed me into the cell. I was full on shitting myself at this point. So was everyone else. The Thais were mostly young men with tattoos. They seemed to find it amusing at first at the amount of distress we were in, as if they had seen this many times before. We were all frightened by the whole situation and I was frightened by the Thais in the cell with me. I didn't know the crimes they were in here for. They looked tough. And I know from Vietnam that Asians with a lot of tattoos are normally gangsters. I really didn't want to fall asleep. An Australian guy we were with started screaming and yelling. At the time, I thought this was real. But looking back, I'm going to assume this was an act. He proclaimed he needed his medicine, they were in his hotel room, or he was going to die. He basically acted out a panic attack of some form. This wasn't good for my anxiety at all. I just wanted this guy out of the cell, which luckily happened as the police escorted him out. Eventually, I couldn't help but fall asleep using my t-shirt for a pillow. I slept maybe 4 hours and woke up feeling absolutely horrible. The feeling of waking up in that Thai jail cell was probably the worst I've ever felt in my life. The hangover wasn't helping either. I was thirsty as hell at this point and saw only the Thais had snacks and water. A guard came around and I asked him for some water. I was ignored. A Thai guy heard me asking for water and gave me some water from a big water bottle. I thanked him deeply and was pleased to have a positive interaction with these guys. I should mention that I was arrested Friday night. The courts would not open again until Monday. At the time, I didn't know this and figured I would just pay a fine and be on my merry way. I chatted with the other foreigners, meeting some now good friends. Eventually, the guards came in, proclaimed our bail is set for $1,200 US. I forget what the baht amount was, but I just remember it was $1,200 US. They offered to briefly give us our phones back so we could have someone drop off the money. Everyone said okay, but I told them I was here alone and I needed to get back to my hotel to pay it. They said okay. Next they came in with everyone's phone and mine is magically missing. I think, okay, that's fine, they forgot mine. I tell the guard mine is missing in the pile and he says, okay, let me go and take a look for you. He doesn't come back for a while. Literally everyone is on their phones except me. He finally does come back and says, you phone not here. I said, what do you mean it's not here? He responded, not here, then left the room. I was feeling horrible at this moment. What was I to do? How long would I be in here? The day progressed and all my Farang friends would slowly be released, paying the $1,200 bail. I asked each of them to call the US Embassy for me when they got out and they assured me they would. Nevertheless, it's the second night and I'm alone in a cell with 6 Thai gangsters. Believe it or not, all my fears were completely wrong. They were some of the nicest people I've ever met. That night, they had many people dropping them off food and snacks. They asked me if I was hungry. I said, oh yes, very. And they proceeded to give me food and drink. They even gave me a pillow that night. The lights went off in the jail and my eyes lit up when I saw they had some cigarettes. They saw my wide-eyed reaction and offered me some. We smoked and joked in broken English all that night. These guys were truly awesome. I found out they were all in here for drug-related charges and they all had the option to pay some ridiculous fine to get out or waste 3 to 5 years in a Thai prison. Apparently, each year spent in the prison system, the price would drop by around 100,000 baht, and they were going to wait for the price to get low enough so they could pay. I was honestly enjoying my time with these guys. This is probably one of the realest Thai culture drop-ins you could ever have. But in the back of my head, I kept thinking I was in serious trouble. To make my situation better though, someone's girlfriend had sneaked in a bag of banana moonshine, which I immediately recognised from Vietnam. It wasn't much, but this stuff was so strong it could get us all buzzed. They had taken me in as if I was part of their family. This was really awesome. After some drinking and smoking and some paper hockey where you use a folded up paper to flick into each other's goals that was made of their hands, I showed them this game that I learnt in high school and they quite enjoyed it. We were desperate for entertainment. They told me not to worry so much as drinking and driving was not a serious offence for foreigners as it was for the Thais. They advised me not to pay the bail under any circumstances as I would be going to court on Monday where I would pay a much less and even be discounted per day spent in the cell. I was relieved at hearing this. It all ended up being true. Monday morning came and I was off to court, which was a really long and strange endeavour. I was cuffed again and waiting in a cell with a bunch of others to see the judge. One old Thai man was shackled, legs and hands, and clearly medically insane, walking around the same cell as me. I was freaked out by this. Eventually, I saw the judge and the proceedings were all done in Thai. I saw all the others I had been arrested with wearing nice clean clothes and showered. Meanwhile, I was looking raggedy like I had been sleeping on cement for the last 3 nights. We all got minimum penalties of 2 to 5,000 baht fines. Mine was 3,000 baht, which included the strange discount of sleeping in the jail for 3 nights. But guess what? I still didn't have any money. So what was I to do? Luckily, believe it or not, a Thai police transport officer, that's the guy who transports prisoners, said he would pay for me if I paid him back and gave him an extra 500 baht. I more than happily agreed, and that was that. The story does not end there though, as a very strange occurrence happened when I went back to the police station. When I returned to the police station the next day to give my money donor his 3,500 baht and take back my passport, as the police had retrieved that from my hotel during my stay, I returned to him his money and walked out of the building with the police chief. A sexy girl walked by heading towards the police station. I joked with him by whistling, letting him know there was a hot girl approaching. He then asked me if I would like to get a massage with him. I asked him what he meant, and he said he knew that girl and she could provide a nice massage and other services. I knew this was illegal in Thailand and respectfully declined. That just goes to show the priorities of the Patong Police Department. I'm not sure if he was serious or trying to bait me into another arrest. Anyways, that's my story. Hope you liked it. Lesson learned, don't drink and drive in Thailand. Another lesson learned, Thai people are really good people. Those Thais who decided to help me that day were truly lifesavers. I actually returned to the jail and gave them boxes of street food, sodas and cigarettes hidden in the bottom of the rice boxes. Great people. I wish I could meet them again and thank them one last time. Side story, I once met a man from England on Colson Road in Bangkok who was about 28 years old, alone in his underwear at around 11 a.m, asking me for money because the lady he was with stole absolutely everything from him in his room, including all of his clothes. I bought this man 2 large Chang beers and wished him the best of luck. He happily accepted. There you go, what a great story. Yeah, it's very serious now, drinking and driving in Thailand. I remember years ago it wasn't so serious. It's just not worth drinking and driving, is it? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the money, it's about your safety. And motorcycles can be dangerous anyway, not because of the person riding it, but because of people pulling out of side streets and just not following the rules. So I think the best thing, guys, when you go anywhere on a motorcycle, don't drink. That's the safest way to do it. Right, let's jump into story number 2. Okay, this is a very short story here, and I'll just get straight into it. Me and a few friends went to Pattaya back in February 2020. We went to the clubs with our girlfriends and was hungry after a night of drinking and dancing. So we went to eat at a restaurant called New York Diner. We ordered our food and one of my friends ordered a hot dog. He took one bite out of the hot dog and he didn't like how his hot dog tasted. So he told the staff about how he disliked the hot dog and ordered something else entirely different. After we were all done eating, we asked for the bill and we saw that they included the hot dog in it. We asked the staff why they charged us for the hot dog, and they said because you ordered it. We tried to give the hot dog back to them, but they refused to take it. Our girlfriends, which are local Thai women, tried to tell them that how displeased we are about the hot dog and that we should not be charged for it. But the staff and the manager said that we still had to pay for it. After a while, the staff were surrounding us and watching us like we were going to run out of the restaurant without paying. In the end, we paid the bill and left no tip and left peacefully. We thought it was like America, where if you don't like what you ordered, you can get something else or return it for a new one, but obviously we're not in America. We all vowed never to go back to that restaurant again. So that's it. That's a strange one. I don't know what the rules are in the UK, because if I ever go somewhere to eat, I always eat it. I don't send it back. But just a personal thought on this one. I don't agree that you should be able to send it back. Look, the hot dog is advertised. It's come to your table. You've taken a bite out of the hot dog. Now, just because you personally don't like the taste of that hot dog, Why should the restaurant lose the product that they've just served you? That's my view on it. Now, on the other side of the coin, if they brought the hot dog to you and you found a hair in it, for instance, or there was some defect in the food and you said, look, there's a defect, I want to send this back, then yeah, they should replace it or refund you. I agree with that. But if you just didn't like the taste of it, I don't know. What do other people think? I just don't think that you have a right to get your money back just because you don't like it. That's just me. Okay, let's get into our next story. I arrived back in Bangkok after spending 2 days confined to a hotel room after suffering the worst diarrhea I had ever had and will never return to the hotel it occurred at due to embarrassment. Anyway, somehow I managed to get back to Bangkok relatively incident-free. I had planned on taking a bus but ended up hiring a taxi, which cost me a fortune. I did have one emergency on the way back but managed to get to a toilet in time. On the trip back to Bangkok, the taxi driver turned on the music. Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm Sexy was playing. I said, "Oh, Rod Stewart." The taxi driver said, "Yes, do you know Rod Stewart?" I replied I did. He seemed amazed. I knew of Rod Stewart and very happy about it. He seemed amazed that I knew of Rod Stewart and he was very happy about it. It must have been a best of Rod Stewart mix the taxi driver was playing. He played Rod Stewart all the way back to Bangkok. I think I found Thailand's #1 Rod Stewart fan. The taxi driver sang along all the way to Bangkok. He knew all the words, he had a very deep and soothing voice, and I was so physically weak as a result of my diarrhea, I went into a dreamlike state for most of the trip to Bangkok, except for the emergency stop. I would actually describe it as blissful. I was meeting an Australian friend who was staying in the Nana area with his girlfriend from Udon Thani. I decided to stay in a hotel on Soi 2. I checked into my hotel and slept all afternoon. When I woke, I felt a lot better. Not 100%, but much better. I decided I needed to eat. I hadn't eaten in over 48 hours. I had effectively survived on electrolyte replacement drinks and antibiotics. The hotel I was staying in had a small restaurant which sold pizzas. I ordered a pizza. When it arrived, it was much bigger than expected. When I started eating it, I hadn't realised how hungry I actually was. I ate the whole thing. I was starting to get better. I waited a few hours and decided my tummy was okay. The pizza had remained in my tummy and there had been no accidents. I then made arrangements to meet my friend and his girlfriend on Soi 4. I walked there. They wanted to have dinner. I didn't, as I had already eaten. I ordered a beer. The beer didn't go down too well and it took me ages to drink it. Maybe my tummy wasn't as well as I thought it had been. My friend was drinking Jack Daniels and Coke Zero, so I ordered one of these. I think it was that decision which caused my night to turn out like it did. I only usually drink beer. Ordinarily, I can drink beer all night, remember everything of the night, get myself home okay, even at 3 a.m. in the morning, and perform to a reasonable standard when I get back to the room if I have company. There are some occasional exceptions if I am tired and have an empty stomach, for instance, but normally I hold my alcohol quite well. After my friends had dinner and a few drinks, they said they wanted to go somewhere else as my friend's girlfriend wanted to catch up with a few of her girlfriends. We caught a taxi and a short while later we arrived at a bar. We all sat at a table and drank. I stuck to Jack Daniels and Coke Zero. Not too long after we arrived, a very attractive lady came and sat at the table next to me. I will never forget her smile. She had a mouthful of the biggest and whitest teeth I have ever seen. She joined in the conversation as though she knew everyone. I found out her name was Dang. The drinks flowed. I know I had too many JDs as there are parts of the evening that are blank. Dang drank San Miguel Light and a lot of them. I felt Dang's hand brush my leg a few times. Around midnight, my friend's girlfriend exploded. She's a nice lady, but when she drinks, and if she drinks too much, she can snap. It can be ugly. My friend's girlfriend gave my friend a verbal barrage in Thai. She then turned to me, pointed at me and started yelling at me in Thai. She then stormed off. She was gone. My friend asked me what he had done wrong. I told him nothing. He told me I had done nothing wrong either. We waited 20 minutes or so, but his girlfriend didn't return. She had gone off with his hotel room key. We decided to call it a night. We must have settled the bill, but I don't recall. We left the bar and hopped into a taxi. My friend sat in the front and I jumped in the back. I looked to my right and Dang hopped in as well. I don't recall asking her to come with us. When we got back to Nana area, we dropped my friend at his hotel. He didn't have his key to get into his room, but he said he'd be okay. Dang said she knew where we could go. We ended up at the Hillary bar on Soy 4, the one with the live bands. My memories of the night from then on are sketchy. I remember a drinks waiter coming over what seemed like every 5 minutes. Dang would say, "Jack Coke Zero." I would slam them down quickly and the process was repeated 5 minutes later. I have a memory of being pinned up against the wall at the nightclub and Dang kissing me. I remember Dang drinking San Miguel Light. My next memory is being at Burger King. I remember Whopper juice running down to my elbows, me apologising to Dang and her saying, "It's okay, darling." I then remember attempting to walk down Soy 2. I was weaving all over the place as I was really drunk. I remember apologising to Dang and her saying, "It's okay, darling." I have no recollection of arriving at the hotel. My next memory is waking up in the morning. Dang was in the bed under the covers. She was wearing a pair of panties and a t-shirt she'd taken from my suitcase. I was laying on top of the bed, fully clothed in what I was wearing the previous evening. My shoes had been removed. Dang confirmed I was asleep before my head even hit the pillow. Dang was drop dead gorgeous and made it clear she would be interested in some bedroom aerobics if I was up for it. I had to decline as every time I tried lifting my head it felt like a freight train running through it. What a waste, as Dang was stunningly sexy. Dang told me she had to get to work by 10 a.m. She showered, dressed and left. She didn't ask me for any money and declined when I offered, but she left her line app details. Later in the day, I called my friend. He told me that everything was now cool with his girlfriend and he had no trouble getting into his room. His girlfriend apologised for her behaviour the previous evening and confirmed she and her friends had no idea who Dang was. To this day, I have no idea whether I bar-fined Dang. I'm very appreciative she was kind and caring, got me back safely to my hotel and didn't take advantage of my very drunken and vulnerable state. I stayed in touch with Dang online for a while. We messaged every month or so just as friends. I caught up with her for a drink on a subsequent trip to Bangkok. She was working in a beer bar at the time. We didn't quite hit it off like we had the previous time and I didn't take her out of the bar. She actually seemed relieved. She blocked me online soon after that. So there you go, guys. He was very, very lucky, actually. Dang seemed to be a nice girl, took care of him, made sure he got back to the room and gave him the opportunity to let it go further in the morning, which he declined, obviously, because he was drunk. He could have ended up in a lot of trouble if he'd got the wrong girl. All right, so one more story to go, guys, and this is quite short, but quite interesting. This story didn't happen in Thailand, but I thought I would send it as I was Thailand bound when it occurred. This occurred in the airport at Kuala Lumpur as I was awaiting my connection to Bangkok. It was back when Donald Trump was a US president. I was sitting on a row of chairs in a corridor outside of my gate when a man about the same age as me sat down in the seat next to me despite the whole row of chairs being empty. The man started talking to me. Very soon after, a lady came over who the man said was his wife. She lay down on the row of seats, resting her head on his lap. The man told me he was from Sri Lanka and asked me if I'd heard of Sri Lanka before. I told him I had and that I was a cricket fan. I started reeling off the names of as many Sri Lankan cricketers as I could remember. He seemed impressed by this. The man told me his kids had been on Sri Lanka's Got Talent. He asked if I wanted to see some video footage of them. He then proceeded to play a video of his two teenage boys doing tricks on Yamaha trail bikes. I didn't think the tricks were that great. Obviously, I didn't tell him that. The video seemed to go on way too long and I was starting to get bored. The man's wife had gone to sleep on his lap. He put a finger on his lips as if to say shh. He then started playing a porn video on his phone. He was smiling at me. I thought, oh great. I was in a strict Muslim country, in an airport with CCTV everywhere, and I'm watching porn with a Sri Lankan man. I had visions of being arrested and detained. After about 30 seconds or so of watching porn with my new Sri Lankan friend, I saw a man walking down the corridor towards us who looked remarkably like Kim Jong-un from North Korea. As that man got close to us, my new friend yelled at him, "Hey, Rocket Man." The man looked over. My friend said, "Yeah, you, Rocket Man." I took this as my cue to leave, as I did not want to be involved in any incident. I grabbed my carry-on bag and walked away without saying goodbye. When my gate was open, I returned to the area. There was no sign of my Sri Lankan friend or the Kim Jong-un lookalike. To end, this is a short story from Bangkok airport. On one of my trips where I was being mistaken for Sir Anthony Hopkins, I was at the new Bangkok airport on my way back to Australia. I had cleared immigration and was waiting for the gate to open. A Thai boy of probably 17 or 18 was looking at me strangely. He then came over and in broken English nervously asked me if he could have a selfie with me. I said sure. After taking a dozen selfie shots with me, he nervously asked me for my autograph. He was shaking with nervous excitement. It was obvious he thought I was someone famous. I signed the back of his boarding pass to my #1 fan. The signature I used was an unreadable signature. To this day, I have no idea who he thought I was. I am definitely not famous and I look a lot more like Homer Simpson than I do Sir Anthony Hopkins. So there you go. Do you know what? I over the years, I've met a lot of interesting people at the airport, some real nice guys actually. And that's the thing about the airports, isn't it? You know, when you're out and about, you don't normally talk to strangers, but you know what it's like in Heathrow, in London, Heathrow Airport. I'll check in, go through the immigration, put the bags on through immigration, everything. Head to the airport bar, I'll order myself a drink. I'm sitting at a table, I've got my pint of lager and I think, the holiday's begun. And, you know, because it's very, very crowded, I might be sat on a small round table, 3 seats, 4 seats, and I'm the only one. Somebody else comes along and they'll sit next to you and you're kind of a bit sheepish to start off with, but you get into a little conversation with the person who's sitting there. And because of the time that you're there, most of the people in there, they're on an Asian flight. A lot of the Asian flights from the UK go out in the evening, 9:30 for Thai and also for Eva Air. And what will happen, and this has happened to me lots of times, there'll be a guy there on his own, about my age, slightly younger maybe, and you know, once you establish that you're both going to Thailand, you're going to Thailand, yeah, I'm going to Thailand, then it all starts, you know, the barriers come down and have you been to Pattaya, have you been to this soy, do you know that place? And I've met some great guys that way, which I've gone on to meet when I've been into Thailand. You meet 1 or 2 weirdos, not too many thankfully, but you know, you do meet some nice people in the airports. Right, that's it for today. I just want to plug my book one more time because it's the first time I've ever advertised it. As I said at the beginning of the video, there is a link below. The Kindle version is now on Amazon. You can download that to a PC, a laptop or a phone. You have to read it. It's not audible at the moment. We're looking into doing that for the second volume of the book. I'm sure there's going to be quite a few volumes. I've got a lot of stories. And the other thing, as usual, guys, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, that'd be great. There's a link also in the description if you'd like to buy me a beer or a coffee, contribute towards the channel. I thank you in advance for that. And you can join as a member. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed these 4 stories. I'll be back on Friday, 9 p.m. UK time for the live stream. Until then, I'll catch up with you all soon.